And we're back. Spirit Talk Podcast. Today is April 4th, 2023, and we're back with Kathy Biehl, the astrologer extraordinaire, and she has the news on what happened today astrologically. So when they go back in the history videos, in American history videos, they might see us like 100 years from now explaining with Kathy explaining everything that's going on. I just rolled in, just grabbed a sandwich and rolled in at around 2:45, and Trump, I had said on my Psychic News Network that it was going to be not exactly 2:15, and I was
And
busy, but
it was not
a little,
exactly a 2:15. It was
yeah.
closer to 2:30. The moon is in Virgo.
Oh, right.
And the moon placement of this chart is something that has given some people concern, and it also exists in the chart of the announcement last Thursday that an indictment had been handed down and sealed. And that is, it's a condition when the moon has finished making all of its major aspects, when it's at the end of the sign and isn't going to touch anything else until it changes signs. This is something that's called void of course.
Yep.
And the traditional rule for that is stuff that happens when things are, if whatever happens when the moon is void of course unravels or doesn't work out or doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. I have many stories in that regard. However, it doesn't mean things don't happen, and it doesn't mean dead in the water. I think Obama was inaugurated under a void moon. He got a lot of pushback, but he did get a lot of things done. So this doesn't mean the end of it.
Just to recap, the moon went void, of course, after they scheduled.
No, the moon, every 2.5 days, the moon goes void, of course, because the moon spends about 2.5 days in a sign. So every 2.5 days, it touches things, and then it has this period of time when it's not making any major aspects, and then it changes signs. And so it's that little still time, and that's when you can't reach people on the phone, and nobody answers your email, and you just want to stare out the window.
It's like a mini Mercury retrograde. I like to describe it that way. But how long does it generally stay void? Of course, is that variable?
It's variable depending on what sign is involved and what the latest planet is. And so recently voids have been really, really short because Pluto's been parked at the end of Capricorn for so long. And now they're somewhat longer. However, I will say, but there's still a planet that's pretty close to the end of its sign, and that is Neptune. And I think a void when the last aspect is to Neptune, I don't have too much of a problem with that, actually, because Neptune is involved in this trial. Neptune is the planet that rules lying, that rules deceit, that rules flim-flam, that rules gaslighting, that rules fraud, among other things. It rules lots of nice things too, like what we do. But that's the lower end of it. And Neptune is today, and it was on Thursday, it is in a direct, unimpeded flow to the signature for Trump's money. He has a conjunction with Venus and Saturn. Venus is one of the money planets. Saturn is organizations, it's responsibility, it's structure. And they're both in Cancer, which is family money. And depending on which chart you use, it's either in the 11th house of organizations, i.e. the Trump organization, or it's in the 12th house of hidden things. And Neptune, which I've just described, has been for a long time in his house of other people's money, debts, payoffs, taxes, insurance, sex, and it's in this unimpeded flow right now to that signature. So what's involved in this trial? What's involved in the trial coming up on the eclipse? A woman, money, a woman, rape, defamation, you name it, that kind of stuff. So it's a things coming to light moment.
So what's can I just ask you a question about where Neptune is configured. Have to understand, I'm a rookie, and everybody, here I think it's not like a professional astrologer. I might be wrong about that. What's Neptune in his birth chart? What is it that makes him such an amazing con man?
Now, that is an excellent question. And the answer to that is Neptune, which is the planet of illusion and glamour and making things that, they aren't really there, is in his second house of talents, abilities, money. And I will just throw in that Alvin Bragg has a planet exactly on top of that, and not just any planet. He has Pluto, the keeper of secrets and huge money. And if someone has a Pluto contact that's exact to your chart, you perceive that person as could be life or death threat, but incredibly powerful. And that's exactly where Bragg's Pluto, that's exactly where Trump's getting hit in this proceeding.
Isn't it interesting? Like, it seems predestined.
Well, funny you say that.
I'm psychic.
The north node of the moon, which is a mathematical point, I don't want to get into, it's just, there's something that is this way to the future. There is something that is, this is our collective destiny. This is what we're heading toward. And it's very nicely at the top of the chart in the arraignment chart. And in the time that was originally announced, it was right smack in the highest part of the chart. But since the arraignment happened a little bit later, it's in the 9th house of legal proceedings.
So you have the arraignment chart. There it is. It's official, folks. We have the arraignment chart. It's exclusive. So, and that was for what time? For 2:30 today?
Well, I adjusted. I marked down what it is at 2:30. So that's within a few minutes. I got the time from legal Twitter's been crazy today. So I got the time from that. From enough people said, here he is. He walked into the courtroom 3 minutes ago, and I went, okay, we ain't put it there.
I got the snapshot before and the snapshot after on Midas Touch, which actually they have the highest number of viewers anywhere right now on YouTube. So democracy is of great interest. So the arraignment happened. The after photo of him coming out of the courtroom, my psychic impression was stunned. I felt that he was stunned when he came out. And I'm not sure, we don't know too much about what happened just as of yet. But I felt like, I don't know what, would it be Uranus, like a whack upside the head kind of just a sense in terms of reality?
Well, there are influences that are really stretching his playing fast and loose with things.
Yeah.
And like a rubber band about to break. But Uranus in the sky is in a really uncomfortable relationship to Uranus in his chart. And it's a relationship that I describe as a pebble in your shoe, and you can keep ignoring it, but it's bugging you. So there's a nagging discomfort that really requires you to man up and act in a way that's different than what you've done before, or the discomfort will stay there. And Uranus is also the planet that is the expression of his disruptor personality. He's a chaos agent. Yeah. And that plays out, and it's at the top of his chart. So he's publicly a chaos agent. That's what he always has been. I mean, that's why somebody who was just a real estate developer felt he had the right and the need to throw his ideas into public discourse starting in the 80s. And he would just spout off on stuff.
Yeah, just for the negative attention.
Yeah. Like, who are you? Why is this? Yeah.
Speaking of that, I don't know if this is available to you. Hello, everyone out there. Feel free to ask a question for Kathy. Marjorie Taylor Greene threatened to show up. And last night, I felt like because during my live stream, the Psychic News Network, I felt like she hadn't shown up. And then I heard that she had shown up, after all. So I know that we talked about her and Donald Trump last time and that they're both Geminis.
Well, I actually have not bothered to run her chart because I sense that in the long run, she is not significant. So let me see if I can see real quick what might have done this, because she got shouted down and she got a dressing down from, I think, a state legislator. I'm not sure. And she left really quickly. And there was a billboard in Times Square with Margaret Hamilton in her green face makeup as the Wicked Witch of the West.
I missed that.
I'll
catch up on the news a little bit later.
Directed at that visitor. So, there's just, okay. Here's the bigger picture thing that's going on that I think will address what you've just brought up. There was a certain state of astrological affairs at the midterms, and Uranus, which you mentioned, was smack on the full moon that happened that day, which was a lunar eclipse. But right. Uranus was retrograde. It has now gone direct, and it is now going over the territory that it traveled, that it traveled to get there. So that's the time of things switching, of stuff changing course that looked like it was going a certain way. Mm-hmm. At the midterms on that eclipse. So a lot of people who have been in the spotlight and been shaking things up are now going to have big surprises coming to them. And I would put her in that category.
Well, that's kind of in alignment with what I've been predicting for this month and moving forward. I tend to call things a little early, in my psychic readings, but I really did feel like everything was going to come tumbling down for the wannabe fascist segment of our government around this time.
Well, I agree with you completely, and this is what I see as it, and there will be big movement forward in June on this. Maybe a lot of fighting, maybe some things actually getting implemented that will be dealing with stuff from November and things that are going to come to a head in May. The other piece of it is this particular switcheroo that I've been talking about is part of what is absolutely destabilizing Kevin McCarthy's chart.
Oh, I was about to bring him up. Yep.
Well, really?
Yeah, I was just about to bring up his name because you mentioned June. Like earlier, probably the end of last year, I was pulling cards and I saw that Kevin McCarthy would be in really big trouble around June, much to my dismay, because at the time it seemed like so far away, but fast time goes.
Well, here's some lovely things about him that I think you'll appreciate. He has a signature in his chart for astonishing ability to pull in money, to make money, to have it show up. And one of the cornerstones of this is the planet Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. And Uranus is just sitting there going, destabilize, destabilize, destabilize. And it's hitting all of it. And it is challenging the planet of illusion, Neptune, in Scorpio, which is Neptune and Scorpio can be highly spiritual, able to see things below the depths, be able to work behind the scenes and stuff. But in this instance, it's going to pull up stuff about money, hidden money that shouldn't be there. The eclipses are going to be extraordinarily uncomfortable for him. And they could bring they will set some things in motion that will pull stuff out of the shadows. And mid-June, what he does on a daily basis could change drastically and suddenly. But let me say one other thing that's going on with him. He's having his Saturn return this year.
Oh dear. That could be bad.
Now,
If,
Saturn's the planet of adulting.
yeah.
Saturn goes about 28 and a half to 30 years around, completely around. So in your late 20s, in your late 50s, it comes back to where it was when you were born. Saturn return in your late 50s is a time of testing all the foundations on which you have built your professional life and seeing what is going to stay with you and what you're done with. And so his Saturn's going to go across it 3 times, once very soon, once in the summer, and once late in the summer, because it's going to retrograde in June.
Mm-hmm.
June, what an interesting month. Anyway,
Yeah.
when's
his birthday? When's his birthday?
I'm ashamed to say he's an Aquarian, January 26, 1965.
Sorry, every sign has its good and bad, right?
Well, I have a bunch of cohorts I'm really not too proud to claim at this point. But anyway, what I want to mention about the Saturn return for him is it's going to get tested. So this is not going to be an easy year for him. And if he's been doing anything the slightest bit suspect, it's going to get rammed. The cosmic 2x4 coming down, or something like pulling the pylons out from his foundation. And here's the fun fact out of it. Saturn is passing through his 10th house of public reputation and career. His Saturn is natally there. When Saturn entered, you're going to love this name, Nixon's 10th house, Watergate broke and he was forced to resign.
Wow.
Now, that does not mean if you have Saturn going through your 10th house, you're going to have misfortune, but you're going to get tested. You're going to have pop quizzes on how you've been handling things. And if you have not been acting responsibly, well, there will be consequences.
Because Saturn seems to me, my perception of it is like we all have sort of a dharma or a path. And when Saturn comes along, from my perspective, it feels like it gets, if you're not on the right, the straight and good path in terms of doing the right thing, it will whoop you upside the head and give you all those lessons that you didn't listen to. You know, that little still small voice is like, oh, like the angel on your shoulder. You maybe shouldn't be doing that. And you don't listen. And then Saturn comes and it's like your angel just whacks you upside the head and says, I told you. And it's so interesting about Kevin McCarthy. When I look at his energy, he seems like an empty... He seems empty. He it's a very unusual kind of a read that I get on him. It's like, what's in there? It feels like there's no substance, like he's a shell. So I wonder if you see anything that, if that makes sense to you.
Well, he has an innate ability to be really detached.
That aloofness, right?
Because he has the sun in Aquarius and the moon in a harmonious relationship to his sun in Sagittarius, which is, and both of these are, don't fence me in, I need breathing room.
Right.
I'm on the far side of the galaxy. But what's interesting about this, even with that, is he's got this ability to be absolutely earthbound. So you see an empty shell, maybe what you're seeing is he's a bank account. I don't know. It's a horrible thing to say about somebody. He also has a streak of being a chameleon.
What do you mean about the bank account? What do you mean about the bank account?
Well, because he has this signature for extraordinary amounts of money coming in, often through other people. But he's got if I looked at his chart and I didn't know he was a politician, I would say this man is going to be really, really wealthy, which he is.
How wealthy is he?
I do not know, but this is wealth through other people's money. This is, he could have been a good money manager, investment advisor.
I just get the sense about him that he just kind of like slithers around things, right? He doesn't really engage, like he's not very solid. I'm trying to explain it the best way that I can.
Oh,
and
that's the Aquarius Sag combo you're talking about
yeah,
there.
it
Those
feels like
people
he's just
cannot be pinned down.
yeah, and but then by the same token, the people he does that with, he is indebted to. Like they're holding. I call him hostage of the house, right? Because I don't sense that it's of his volition, if he has such a thing. It's like being dictated. What he does seems to be dictated by these really surface, like there's a shallowness about him, so that when I look at his eyes, I just go, it feels like there's nobody home. Like a puppet. Like a puppet. I'm trying to think, isn't there somebody else that we would say that about? Maybe Trump. But he's more solid. Somebody else in the
Yeah.
public, anybody in the chat, who else can we describe in the public eye that is just like a puppet? But Trump is more solid. Kevin has just this emptiness about him. So I can see how in June, whenever those aspects happen, exactly, that would shake things up, because he doesn't seem very stable at all.
Well, I won't be. I mean, the cracks are already there. Okay, the cracks are already there. The disruption, the shocks, the lightning bolts, the surprises, the this isn't going the way we thought it was going to go, and honestly, simply from the journey of the eclipses from last November to what's coming in May. Well, as soon as I saw that, I thought makeup of the house is going to switch. It's not what it looks like. And his being his losing it is part of it. And I looked at Hakeem Jeffries' chart, and he just it's going to take a while for him to get there, but building strength and position. So he's not having things blow him apart. He's got opportunities to consolidate and build.
Somebody's asking about Ted Cruz. I don't think you've run charts for all these people.
Sorry, no, I've not.
Somebody's saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is like a puppet yet to QAnon. Yeah, we have a lot of that puppeting going on in our government. So we were going to also talk, I don't want to miss the topic of the upcoming eclipses, and this upcoming full moon comes first.
Okay.
In Libra, is that right?
Yes, the full moon this week is in Libra.
In 2 short days.
And then the 19th or the 20th, depending where you are on the planet, there's a second new moon in Aries this year, because the one in March was at the very, very, very beginning of the sign, and the one in April is at the very, very end of the sign. So
is that unusual to have two?
It only happens when one of them is at 0 degrees and then the next one's at 29, right? Which doesn't happen very often.
Kind of like a blue moon.
So, what would you like to know about these moons?
Well, we've been hearing so much about the full moon. Well, the full moon a little bit, but the upcoming eclipse, the new moon eclipse.
Okay, this eclipse is a pivot point.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major pivot point for several reasons. One of them is it is the beginning of the gear shift from the eclipses we've been in to the ones we're going to be in. For the past couple of years, we've been having eclipses in the signs that deal with money and resources and investments, and Taurus and Scorpio. And we're moving into eclipses on the relationship axis, how the individual works, what happens, you and another person, you in a relationship, what your relationship ground rules are, how we basically get along. One way I heard astrologer Michael Luton years ago describe this as who's on top. So this particular eclipse is important because it is the first in the shift from one family to the next. We still have 2 more eclipses on the resource axis, one in May, one in November. But this one is in a really harsh aspect to Pluto in Aquarius.
This one coming up in April.
The one coming up in April is in an aspect that is a demand for action. So it's going to be part of shooting us forward into what the next 21 years will be about. Now, and it's at the end of Aries. Aries is not, but it's so far at the end of Aries that for some purposes you would round it up, and it's at the very beginning of Taurus. So it's like blending a bit between what's been and what's coming. Aries is running forward without thinking about the consequences. It's unpremeditated action. It is impulsive. It's daring. It's doing things and not thinking about what's about to happen. It's leaping and then going, uh-oh, what have I just done? Or maybe not even saying, uh-oh, just continuing running. Aries is not gentle or subtle. It's very forceful. And often we need this kind of energy. It's the energy that pushes a sprout up through a seed and then up through the ground and makes it grow. But it's not sweet and pretty for dealing with people.
Gentle. Yeah, it's not gentle. Is it significant that we're coming off a full moon in a relationship sign of Libra?
Well, they're related, okay, because they're opposite. And so the full moon in Libra is kind of is teeing up. We're going to be dealing with relationships. And this one actually is also still dealing with what happened in November, because every full moon, actually since September, has been at the same degree of a sign, and each one has been in a dance with Uranus from a different direction. This one's in an adjustment direction aspect to Uranus. So this Libra full moon is one where a lot of people are going to go, things have changed. I want to do this. And there's some nice aspects around it. So this one isn't people just popping off and saying stuff off the cuff and being really cruel. There's a potential for some, because Venus and Neptune, which both rule love, are in a nice relationship with each other under this, and Venus rules the Libra moon. So this full moon could be just a time of realizing, this isn't working, or let's try this, and then we get into the Aries solar eclipse, and everyone is just, it's like the starting bell goes, or more likely the starting gun goes, and everyone just runs, and they're not even concerned about who's with them, what's happening, who they might be running over. They're just going.
Right.
A couple of facts about a solar eclipse are important to know. Something always leaves under either eclipse because the sky goes black. Something leaves.
Right.
And what I have found to be a really good analogy I have two for a solar eclipse. One is, it's like when you install an upgrade or a new operating system on your computer. It shuts down, it goes black, and then comes back up and something's different.
Yeah, it takes a little while and then it reboots.
The second one is, if anyone played Nintendo and there were kids and Mario Kart and games like that and racing games, you would sometimes hit a power up and suddenly you would go like 10 times faster. That's what this is like. So things are going to really, really speed up. And since Pluto is part of the mix, and so the sun is in the sign that is me, nobody else, me. Pluto's in the sign of the collective.
In Aquarius.
Yeah. And they're in this pushing. So a lot of people are going to come to the fore and like come to the center of their social groups, or I don't know. I think what we're seeing with mobs of people on the ground, like scores of teenagers flooding the legislature in Tennessee,
Yeah.
people sitting on the ground in Florida, people in the streets in Israel, people in the streets in France. There could be something really big that grows out of this. It's not a one-day event. It is launching a 2-year cycle, but it's also launching a 21-year cycle
The Pluto.
because of Pluto being involved with it.
Right.
So this is like the christening. This is like taking a bottle of, it's not even like champagne and hitting it against the airplane. It's like there's something really symbolic and massive. So this is a time that we're coming into when everyone's going to instinctively realize the world is different. We are all different, and people are going to take bold action that they previously held themselves back for. So,
So personally, it could be a very good thing.
Yes, live your best life.
And Aries is ruled by Mars, and it could be, I don't want to say violent, but it could be intense.
It could be intense, and it has a tail that's going to go for or a fuse that's going to go for a long, long time, because there are other things that are going to cross this point for years, and there'll be kind of a resonance or like this felt familiar. I do want to throw in two interesting political things. This eclipse is going to happen on Russia's relationship axis.
Oh, interesting.
It has 29 degrees Aries on that doorway to its house of partners and open enemies.
And Finland just joined NATO. That's a big deal.
That's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're now an uneven number of members of NATO. They're 31.
Do you do numerology too?
No, yeah, but there will not be a deadlock, is my point out of it.
Yeah, okay.
With an uneven number, there won't be deadlock votes. That was a lawyer.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So I heard an astrologer, it might have been Hogarth, say that whatever happens, just going back to Trump for a moment, whatever happens with him and the whole judicial system, an important turn point has to happen before, I think it was this eclipse. Do you see anything like that? Like the momentum is there, or the perfect moment is there prior to these eclipses, like kind of like, strike while the iron's hot kind of energy, because after a certain point there's some kind of a sticking, energy.
I know what
Do you know what that would be?
Yeah, he must be looking at Jupiter changing signs, but I don't see that as a problem. I don't think that's a problem. And here's why. Jupiter is currently in Aries. There's a lot of stuff in Aries right now. So Jupiter in a fire sign has an influence that's like flame accelerant. Right. Jupiter, I say Jupiter is the guy who likes to up the ante of any action he gets near. So when he's in a fire sign, it's like,
oh yeah,
you have a fire here, I'll make it into a bonfire. Here we go. And on the 15th of May, it moves into Taurus, which is, I just want to have a snack. Do not bother me.
Yeah, just kind of hang out. Nice. It's not like a get up and go kind of a. So Jupiter is in Aquarius, but wasn't it just in Pisces? Is it going back and forth?
Jupiter's in Aries, and it retrograded back into Pisces at the end of last year. So it's having this bifurcated time through Aries. It moved into Aries last year, and then it ducked back into Pisces. It went retrograde. Every planet goes retrograde. Went retrograde, finished up its time in Pisces. First 4.5 months of 2003, it's in Aries. Then it moves into Jupiter, and it stays in Jupiter for a
moves
year.
into no, what is Jupiter? Jupiter moves into
Taurus on the 15th of May.
Oh, okay.
And this is very indulgent, but Taurus rules money. And I have been seeing a manifesting, a making real, paying attention to resources and seeing what's there. And I don't see a problem
with resources.
Well, no, I don't see that we can only do things in the first 4.5 months of the year. The first 4.5 months of the year is when the fireworks go off.
Yeah.
And then there is this grounding, consolidating, show me the money, make it real. I want to see evidence. I want proof. And while that's going on, there are still other activating aspects. In June, then we've got something that's going to set off all of the upsy daisy stuff from the November and the May eclipses.
Wow.
I don't think that's the end. This is not like if we don't get them now, we won't get them. I think for anything, that I think that things start to become real and tangible, and you can touch them and start to trust them.
I feel
after Jupiter moves into Taurus.
I do feel that coming. I feel like the pieces are going to come together, and all of this is going to make some semblance of sense.
And it's going to have to do with money.
Yeah, it's always about the money, isn't it? So what about the May 5th eclipse?
We have our next to last eclipse in the family that involves money and resources. There's a solar eclipse in Scorpio.
Ooh.
And for this one, Uranus is opposite the eclipse. It's not right smack on top of it. And I find it really interesting that the royal coronation is like within a day of this. Why would you choose that? And here's why. Solar eclipses are new moons. They start things. Lunar eclipses are full moons on steroids, and they close chapters. They start to shut things down. And one thing I find fascinating with the eclipse families that we're moving through these years is the ones having to do with resources are predominantly full moon lunar eclipses, which shut things down, close chapters, wrap things up, massive revelations, and then closing that book. The ones that we're moving into are almost all solar eclipses, which shoot you forward.
So this lunar eclipse on May 6th is right around the coronation.
May 5th, yeah, it's within a day of the
King
coronation.
Charles. And do you think that the royal family is into astrology?
I have no idea.
Nancy Reagan was.
Right.
Wouldn't be that far-fetched.
There are some things that make sense. And I mean, I am not a royal watcher.
I didn't even know the coronation was then. I'm out of the loop on that.
The astrology of that family is a fascinating teaching tool because they live so large that right. The symbolism that runs through it is, and people just tend to know it too. So I always have classes on what's up with them.
Tend to know the news about the royal family, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of family, you said on a couple points, you said the family when you were talking about astrology. What are you referencing there?
Oh, the eclipse family. Or eclipse cycle. When we have a group of eclipses that are on the same axis, that's just a word I use to mean that grouping. This eclipse group, all the Taurus, Scorpio, current eclipses that are in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio, which we've had for about 2 years, I call that an eclipse family.
So you say an axis, and we're newbies. So what do you mean by axis?
Axis, okay. An axis is a polarity. Eclipses always involve signs that are opposite each other. Well, I didn't say that right. Eclipses in an eclipse group always involve signs that are opposite each other. We have an irregularity coming up because we have a solar eclipse on one seesaw, and then the next one's on a different one. So an axis is a line down the middle of the pie wheel. the chart, and with opposite signs on each end of it.
And to take an introduction to astrology course, you can reach Kathy.
I have a building blocks of astrology course at my shop.
Oh, good. Okay. I'll have to look into that. You mentioned just real quick, you've mentioned a lot of about Scorpio and Taurus being aspected quite a bit, haven't you?
Right, because for the last 2 years, we've been having eclipses in those signs. And on top of that, Uranus has been traveling through one of those signs and is going to be there for a while longer. For
Taurus.
A few more.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uranus is in Taurus. Yeah.
Yeah, and that has everything to do with money. Doesn't it also have to do with the planet?
Right.
What can we expect?
Resources. Disruptions as well as innovation involving money. So cryptocurrency has been part of this. Food distribution, supply chain disruptions, coming up with different ways to make things, handle things, do things, structure. I would have looked, some disruption in the physical planet could be part of this too, but Pluto's time through Capricorn, I think, was really, really big for let's pound on Mother Earth for a while now. Right. I will point out, which I think I mentioned briefly last time, the last time that Uranus was in Taurus was in the 1930s and the very early 1940s. And that the Dust Bowl happened. There was a huge drought in the Midwest that got rid of farmland. The Tennessee Valley Authority was founded to try to harness water for the use. There were all kinds of like rural initiatives to get power to people, electrical power, which would be Uranus. And then a lot of new systems, innovations were put in place as safety nets. Social Security, the Securities and Exchange Commission was founded. There were a number of other things, Work Project Administration. There were things that were innovations to try different ways of dealing with what was going on with the economy.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be successful. Like you mentioned, crypto is a Uranus and Taurus kind of development, but I don't consider cryptocurrency as very successful, but
I have big judgments about it. We'll just leave it at that.
I've always said don't even go there because it doesn't seem like it's going to be successful. It seems like Uranus and Taurus, we could see huge developments in green technology, right?
Yes.
It seems like a great time for that. And where it's been kind of in Taurus, I know it was like, we talked about this last time, was it 2018 or 19 that Uranus went into Taurus? But we've had like a lot of Uranus-Taurus energy over the past few years. So it seems to me that we would really be on top of it in terms of green technology and using sources of energy that are like from the earth. Like geothermal.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And the last time was the New Deal, and a lot of people are talking about the Green New Deal.
Still, because we don't hear that much because it's been flung around by the politicians as a negative. But
things aren't necessarily as they seem.
Yeah, well, to me, I feel like we have it handled. I feel like we have all our energy needs handled if it was just allowed out. You know, and there might be some other astrological aspect that's keeping it undercover besides all the corruption, but that's probably astrologically influenced too, like everything is.
Well, that's a good segue into some of the extremes of Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah, because extreme is the word.
Pluto was in Capricorn from 2008 until a couple weeks ago. And for 10 weeks, it's going to be at the very beginning of Aquarius and then go away. And then next year, in fact, late January, it goes back and then it goes away. And then
what do you mean it goes away? Can't go away.
It goes back and it goes back into Capricorn.
Okay.
Right. So Pluto in Capricorn has been dredging up. It's been dredging up our foundations, institutions, corruption, imbalances of power, all kinds of stuff happened historically when Pluto was in Capricorn.
It feels
well,
bad.
Martin Luther tacked his theses on a cathedral door, and the beginning of Protestantism happened once. That's one of the things that happened with Pluto and Capricorn. So big power structures tend to get splintered from within. So Pluto moves into Aquarius. Well, Aquarius is the collective. It's groups of people. Increasingly, it also involves technology. So you see that AI is like this big thing going on right now. And there's always a shift in power, in alignment of power when Pluto changes signs. And again, people in the streets, that's part of it. And there's very frequently a grassroots vibe to it, or small collectives of people coming together to go after the entrenched interests, especially with extreme ones. In the late 1700s, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, the middle class basically was created. It didn't exist before. There were declarations in France and in the US that set out the rights of the individuals in ways that also had not been done before. So there was an attack against, at least in France, extreme wealth inequality and the underclass going after the aristocracy. And then they kind of went nuts, went a little bit too far. But we've got such wealth inequality right now that that's going to, by definition, be part of this. And church stuff is part of it too. The Catholic Church, the ruling structure of the world, has undergone a massive reshaping pretty much every time Pluto's been in Aquarius since the church was founded, starting with Constantine solidifying everything into one big church. And then another time around, the Eastern wing split off from the Western wing, and we got the Eastern Orthodox Church. So I mentioned, and the Reformation happened, and Britain split off and created the Church of England. So there will be big shifts in massive power structures with an attendant streak of the little people wielding a whole lot more power going down much more to a local level.
So let me use this as an example, perhaps, that might illustrate what we're talking about. When we spoke last week, we had just had the shooting in Nashville. And yesterday I saw the news that there was a pretty big protest in Nashville. I don't know if you saw the news. Subsequently, I saw footage of, it was a peaceful protest at the Capitol. They were walking through the streets, and I heard them singing. They were singing. It was really, really peaceful. And then when the government in Tennessee saw all this, they were protesting gun violence. They want gun laws. Hello, people are being massacred, and they're just making the gun laws more loose. As that's their answer to mass shootings. I think Justin Jones is his name. He's a state rep, young guy, really bright. And another woman, I didn't plan to talk about this, so I forgive me for not having her name. They're banned from their offices. They can't get into their offices. They changed the codes and everything.
Stripped of their committee assignments, and they're going to get removed on Thursday. I mean, there's no way that legislature isn't going to do it.
What is that astrologically? Is that Pluto in Aquarius? That's fascism. That's dictator stuff. That's not democracy.
I will say that Uranus and Taurus also was in place in the lead, while three of the most powerful dictators this world has ever known were amassing their strength.
Interesting.
Stalin, Mussolini, and Hitler.
We're definitely seeing that.
But here's your ray of hope in that situation that has distressed me greatly, because I couldn't
believe it. I
was talking to a colleague about it who kept saying, I feel in the long run this is nothing. I was like, you have to understand, my legal brain cannot absorb this, that
Yeah,
this is
most
happening.
of
I
us
just can't
can't.
absorb it. All right, so this is happening right when Pluto is just showing us what the next 21 years are going to be like. And in this eclipse in April on the 19th is going to set that off. And then in mid-May, as soon as Jupiter moves into Taurus, it's going to set off Pluto in Aquarius, and we're all going to get a really strong signal of this is what it means for me.
Yeah.
And then it'll be a big issue until the middle of June. And then it's going to kind of be one of those things that used to be on the news all the time. Why are we not hearing it? Well, it comes back again when Pluto moves back to where it is in January next year. So this is an issue with massive legs, and it could take a year and a half or so to evolve, but this is not going back. This is a signature.
Yeah.
Both bits of this are a signature for what we're going to be dealing with.
Right. So the protests could, in the long haul, be effective in making change happen.
Absolutely.
And these people that are dug in that do not want to change, we can't stop change from happening. Maybe they'll fall by the wayside, we hope, or they'll just die.
There are a bunch of other astrological influences playing into this. I am, in the long run, optimistic. Pluto in Aquarius is going to cause the baby boomers to just take their little clutchy hands off of everything increasingly, and hand power over, like, nope, okay, abdicate, gone. And Saturn in Pisces, which we have not talked about, which will be going on for a couple of years.
Last week we did a little bit.
Yeah. But we talked a little bit with McCarthy, but Saturn in Pisces is going to, not this year, but starting next year, be lighting up stuff for people who were born in the late 60s. People who were born from 65 to 68 or so have a signature in their chart for being change agents. And it got activated. They may have had no idea that this was part of them, but it got activated when Uranus and Taurus and Pluto were having this pushing match that I talked about last week between 2012 and 2015. And Saturn's going to oppose all that and say, what are you doing? What are you doing with yourself? And it's going to be a challenge for people born in those years to stand up and clean up a lot of stuff.
I've been wondering what it's going to take because I literally, I've been talking about it, and this stuck with me for more than a week now. Well, I guess it's been exactly a week. In the chat on my Psychic News Network last Monday, I think it was, somebody was saying about the shooting. Oh, my sister said, when I mentioned to my sister about the shooting, she said, doesn't affect me. And I've not been able to forget that. It just cannot leave my mind. Because I can't wrap my brain around somebody, I'm speaking to the astrology of this, somebody who has that actual, like, I'm not going to get involved because it doesn't involve me. And I just think there has been a segment of the human population that has, it seems to me, had that kind of an energy, and like, well, if it doesn't affect me, well, I'm not saying you have to like get mired in all the bad news and let it drag you down, but to have a sense of what, like, caring for one's fellow human beings, at least, or to have some compassion. So when you were talking about the kind of complacency for a certain generation is going to be no more, do you see aspects that, is it Pluto and Aquarius, that might make people come together and not have that? Because I think it's a big segment of the population that has, I don't think it's a majority, but big enough that things aren't happening.
Well, two things. Pluto and Aquarius will have that effect. But secondly, Saturn in Pisces is going to be a several-year immersion in lessons of how each of us, of the butterfly effect, of something
Right.
on one part of the globe really affecting you and causing people to increasingly become aware of the pain of humanity. And some people could just deaden themselves. I mean, we could have more opioid stuff going on because people just don't
Yeah.
want to face it, which would be fitting with this. But that's one of the lessons of this transit.
Is
We
that
are
we're all
all
connected.
connected.
Yes.
We're all connected, and what happens to somebody happens to you, and on some level you're responsible. You don't have necessarily have to go clean it all up or go save them, but it's a real challenge to live much more compassionately. Oh, I have run into stuff more horrible than what you've said. There is a Tennessee legislature actually asked those kids, well, what kind of gun would you want to be killed by? What kind of brain does this? This is just like,
Who was that? Who was that? So
I
I
will,
can write a
I
letter.
will, I will send you the information
You
about
can
it.
say it. You can go public with it. They're public.
No, I was just so horrified. I didn't
You
even
don't
want to
know who
know
it
his
is?
name. It was a man. It was a man. And a lot of this does a factor in this that I haven't addressed as we're coming down to the end of our time. But it's worth mentioning is a dwarf planet named Chiron,
Yep.
which has for some time been in the sign of Aries. It has a 50-year transit, and Chiron represents like abiding wounds, unhealed wounds, wounds that are still there. You have to make a different relationship with them. And Aries is the anger. I've seen it as a signature for toxic masculinity, the Me Too
Oh,
movement,
right. Yeah.
mansplaining, all that stuff. Another astrologer that I highly regard, Maurice Fernandez, has a long video with his look at it, and he ties the violence to it. And I went,
Oh,
so obvious, didn't see
interesting.
it. And he points out it does have a 50-year cycle. When when Chiron moved into Aries in March of 1968, Martin Luther King was killed within days.
And that was
And that,
today. Today is the anniversary.
so it was early April that it moved in. So it and that I was alive then, and I was more aware than I wanted to be, and that set a stretch of, I mean, RFK was
That's
shot.
right.
There
Yeah.
was violence at the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
Things were just in the street and crazy, and so some of that has been going on, and that's a factor in this. And Aries is, I said, doesn't pay attention to what's going on with other people. It's just, I'm going to go do my thing, get out of my way. So for some people, it's being lit up of, I can do what I damn well please and have to take you into an account. Somebody else, I actually saw a tweet, my guns greater than your children. Protect your kids, not my responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's unthinkable what's coming out of people. And I that's why I just like to remind everyone that most people are kind. And what I see happening is more and more, I really perceive that type of evil, those type of evil statements as they feel like they want to get you angry, right? So there's a certain kind of sociopathic pleasure that the haters and the trolls, what they get an energy from that. Like, I'm going to say this and it's going to make someone feel really bad. And there's some kind of a charge that they get out of it. And I don't know if that's a Plutonian kind of energy or that Aries or it's awful. And I do pray that we come to a place of where most people are compassionate and we can see it.
I suspect that the first year of getting acquainted with Pluto and Aquarius energy is going to have enough contact with the overlap with Saturn and Pisces, bringing things up to remind us of we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I suspect the next couple of years are going to be part of an evolution in how we deal with each other.
Yeah, and real quick about that, I just want to say that these horrible tornadoes that are just ravaging this country, I think 70 million people are under severe like tornado watch right now. I mean, it's boggling my mind how many people their whole entire lives are being just taken, devastated, just everything they own, gone. That is going to get people to understand that we're all in this together, like we were saying. Experientially, not just, oh yeah, we're all in this together, yeah, well, one affects the whole, and absolutely, when you have nothing, then that's, Aquarian, I think too, we associate with peace and love and harmony, so there must be, maybe that came out of the 60s and 70s, the age of Aquarius is about harmony and coming together, but is that just a kind of misnomer?
A little bit. Aquarians are like, friendship is a religion, and they like the idea of humanity, but a lot of Aquarians don't like people.
Yeah. You're an Aquarian. What do you mean? You wouldn't be sitting here talking to me.
I'm revealing truths.
You must have some other favorable aspects.
I have mostly fire in my chart. Can you not tell?
There it is. Yeah. That makes
mostly
sense.
Fire.
So I want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you so much, Kathy. This is so much fun. It's so informative. So Texas and Severe Storm Watch, I just want to let you know that we have got a lot of people in the chat. I don't see an exact number, but they're mostly, everyone's partying. So
as they should.
I don't.
This is a day for partying.
Yeah, so I guess we have to go and find out what all the news, all the additional news is in terms of after Trump's arrest. Somebody did post something about Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it went by quickly. What I'm wondering is if you might be available in 2 weeks during Eclipse Week.
Yeah, I think I can make that happen.
And I noticed that some people are asking about specific people. So do you think that we can maybe promise we'll look at a couple people's charts?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to see Ted Cruz. I know.
I'm a Texan, so I don't live there currently, but some of my roots are like, oh, please.
Okay, and Marjorie Taylor Greene? I mean, it's your call, but I know that people are interested in these couple.
Okay.
And that week, maybe we can do the eclipses on what day, do you know?
Well, in the Northeast, it's early in the morning of the 20th. In the West, it's the evening of the 19th.
Wednesday?
What day of the week is
Whatever day that is, maybe we can do that day. All right.
It's always interesting to do things when you're in the middle of it, because then you get a different vantage point, different in the center of the insanity, as opposed to looking at it in advance.
I like to show up exactly when it's going on. So, in a couple of weeks, we'll go over the astrology about the eclipses and what's going on in the news and all that. And if people want to get a personal reading from you or take your classes, are you doing personal readings?
Yes. And my class at the moment is on video. I don't have any current ones scheduled.
No, that's good.
But if enough people ask, I'll put them back. Where to go? empowermentunlimited.net. And my YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian, not and I also have a radio show on Times Radio every other week, and this week's episode is all about Saturn and Pisces.
Great.
At Times Radio, and there's a link to it, I think, from my website also. And one final thing, I have 30 minutes discussing the indictment and arraignment on my channel, Professional Aquarian. So
your YouTube channel.
On my YouTube channel.
At Professional Aquarian? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And I'm Annette Dion, and this is Spirit Talk Podcast. You can reach me at psychicannetteDion.com. I also have Church of Spirituality.online and Grassroots of Democracy. We meet twice a week. Grassrootsofdemocracy.com. Please check it all out, and thank you so much. And we will see you soon. Namaste.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.